So there's a lot of apprehension in speaking about this, because I don't know if it's possible to speak about in an accurate way. I know that silence is accurate. And I know there's a lot of noise out there, and this is just more noise on top of noise. And so much of media is just externalized intrusive thought. And that's not what's alive here. And what I know about truth is it's not harmful. It's really not. But when the truth gets abducted, when the truth gets bent by a perspective that's not willing to see its own truth and where it's coming from, then it becomes harmful. But I see and I feel a lot of suffering externally, and it strikes me when I'm not even trying to consume something, but it comes flying at me. It's so easy to consume in this modern world of screens and technology, and you really have to be intentional and careful about what you open yourself to. And something I work a lot with folks from a psychological therapy perspective is it's not a character defect that when you go onto social media or the internet or your news feed or pick your poison of choice, that your nervous system gets hijacked. And we know this, or at least many people know this now. But it is designed to take over our biology, our fight-flight response. But there are certain, beyond just the technology itself, there are certain storylines that get fed to us that are so emotionally charged, so trauma charged, so core belief charged around injustice. Like, pick your perspective, pick your polarized party. Climate change, politics, war, illness. And the reason I'm being very careful in speaking and hesitant in speaking, I guess, is because I'm not for ignorance. I'm not for avoidance. If you've listened to anything that I've ever posted. I'm not for avoidance of what's happening on our planet, in our communities, in our governments, in our schools. But there's so much avoidance going on in ourselves. That if we're jumping to the news, if we're jumping to a news feed, if we're jumping to somebody's social story of the injustice in the world and the injustice in what's unraveling in this moment, and I'm not going to talk specifics because there's so much of it, and there's so many billions and trillions of lives, human, non-human, who are in pain and dying and suffering and at war, that I'll never know. Because there's also so many countless lives that are having moments of joy, that are having moments of bliss or neutrality. And that's not to whitewash. But it's to actually empower in a proper way. Like, what do I have power over? What do I have power through, in, with? Which is a hard pill to swallow, because that means that the unavoidable pain of being alive is going to be more visceral. But it's so deceptive, because you could think that this is a person talking spiritually who's not from I don't even want to name the religions that get stigmatized towards certain kinds of politics or beliefs. Because then there might be an assumption that I agree or disagree. Or that I'm progressive. Or not progressive. It's so insidiously, like, unconscious how quickly we become an us versus them, how quickly we can co-opt fear and have an agenda when we're sharing the news. An agenda of, let's rally behind injustice. Let's rally behind healing. I don't know, I get sad a little bit to feel how rarely I open to consume something and it feels true, truthful, honest, integrity, not inflated. I don't know if it's possible to talk about this in a non-specific way, because the moment I get specific, it's just not my discernment to make for somebody else, or to feel like I'm tearing somebody else's story down or platform down, or I have no interest in that. And it could also be that that moment, it's not my truth, but for them in the moment where it was created, it was. But when are we going to start listening internally? Like, is this my moment of consuming this news? And is it alive in me? Or am I taking on somebody else's story? Am I taking on what's alive for them? Am I taking on the storyline? Am I taking on their fear? Am I taking on this narrative that we're doomed? The planet is burning alive, that life is hopeless, that something is changed, and we can never go back. I think when you've gone to the depths of your own mortality and powerlessness, and you find your own power, there's a discernment that happens. And then there's an anger that, like, yeah, when those buttons get pressed, when the boundaries are on what's mine and what's someone else's in this lifetime, of course, yes, there's unity. But in this lifetime, there's only so much that this person is capable, connected to, in community with, in union with. And that's incredibly powerful. But it's limited. The hesitation in saying any of this is towards apathy. That I would ever suggest that people not care about the climate, that people not care about our schools and our government, that in any way questioning consumption and news has anything to do with apathy or not caring. Quite the opposite of how could we actually be in a place of caring if we're disassociated from ourselves, unable to discern what's mine and someone else's, unable to feel into the reality that life is unfair. War happens, death happens, tragedy happens, and fighting against it perpetuating trauma with it is the same kind of energy. And that anything that radically interrupts that energy, in my lived experience, comes from love, which is an entirely different energy, feeling, somatic response, openness, humility, fieriness. So I could have a very specific conversation with someone sitting in front of me about a specific thing that might have just popped up on my screen and really pissed me off because of the polarization that just is embedded in it. But I know where that kind of, in this platform, on this device that might get posted, maybe it won't, I don't know. But I know where that goes. I know the combative nature of this social media algorithm, and I'm not interested in that energy of war. I'm not interested in the energy of apathy. I'm not interested in the energy of skepticism. Interested in the aliveness, the integrity of what are you feeling in this moment? Beneath the headlines, beneath the global narratives of how we're doing or not doing as a species. And where does that energy naturally move you towards? Is it the news? Is it your phone? Is it your neighbor? Is it your body? Is it emptiness? Is it, I don't know. But I'll tell you, I feel a hell of a lot more love right now. Than in looking at that story that popped up that was trying to make me feel something else.